This is Tony T here from Tony'sPicks.com with our college football pick show, week 1, part 1 here, as we film here for the games on Saturday, August 26th. We're going to have 17 games here in part 1. We'll do these in a couple of parts for you as we usually do. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel delivered by myself, as well as the team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making it a great channel to subscribe to. Give us a like, a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Really helps to build up our audience. If you like sports even more, hit that join button, become a channel member, get early access to my videos, and a way to support us for the work that we put into this channel. We go live every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It is the Tony Hicks Morning Show. The cappers join me, going over the picks with you here on the show. Live chat's open, so you guys can interact with us in the live chat. So check us out on that live show every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We are looking for cappers. You can apply, send us an email, or you can apply for a live audition on our morning show. And then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We are a multi-capper site showcasing our top performers. Click the links to the hot cappers. You see them up there like Sean Higgs, Mills, yours truly up there on the leaderboards as well. They're on the board, so get signed up. Latest print picks here, send the page. Solo, a big day yesterday. Latest print picks here, send the page with best bets and more. We are locked and loaded here for this card on this card Thursday. Remember, all of our one-day passes are profit guaranteed. They must turn a profit amount purchased will be credit back to your account for site credits. That's profit guarantee. So we're locked and loaded here. Best bets going here for you guys on Wednesday. And our promo code Tony T at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link's in the description to get signed up. So let's go ahead. Let's get week 1, part 1 of college football here underway. All right, we got Ball State and Purdue for Saturday. We got Ball State finished last season 3-9. Mike Yurimovich, who will enter his first season as head coach. The team returned 7 starters from last season with only 3 on the offense. The team must break in a first-year quarterback, and gone are their top 3 rushing backs. This will be an option-style offense. Will also be a different team from last year. They were 126 in total defense last year, got 469 yards a game with 6.9 yards per play. Barry Odom is in his first year with the school here with Purdue. He turned UNLV into a contender in the Mountain West in his time, and Purdue, well, tough year last year. 111. They returned 8 starters with only 3 on offense. The program last year was near the bottom of college football in total offense and defense. Senior Kyle Kelly is expected to start for the Cardinals. He has a career 50% completion rate, but only 4.7 yards per pass attempt. Ryan Brown will start for Purdue. Sophomore saw limited work the past 2 seasons. About a 60% completion rate, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Purdue will lean heavily on their senior running back, Devin Maccabee, who rushed for 2,460 yards in his career, 4.9 yards per pass per rush attempt. Cardinal went 0-3, 3-0 to the under here in the non-conference last year, and will struggle to score. This game will have lots of running attempts. In the games total between 49.5 and 56, the Boilermakers were 5-1 to the under at home. So the pick here will be Ball State and Purdue to go under 50.5. All right, we got Syracuse and Tennessee for Saturday. The game will be played in a dome in Atlanta, Georgia. Syracuse went 10-3 last year for head coach Fran Browns, who's now in his 2nd season. 8 starters return with only 2 on offense. They will have to replace quarterback Kyle McCord, who moved into the NFL. There has been turnover on the offensive line. They were weak on the ground last year with 3.2 yards a carry. They averaged 366 yards passing per game, sitting tops in college football. Defense, though, allowed 76% completion rate with 8.3 yards per pass attempt. Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel is in his 5th season. 12 starters return with only 4 on offense. Their star quarterback transferred to Tennessee was a team that did their damage on the ground, but they were 100th in pass attempts. They ran the ball for 5.7 yards a carry, and they were also 7th in total defense. Steve Angeli will start at quarterback for the Orange. He saw limited action the past 2 seasons at Notre Dame, completing 73% of his passes with 9.7 yards per pass attempt. Joey Aguilar will start at quarterback here of Tennessee. The App State transfer in 2 starting seasons, completed 60% of his passes, 8 yards per pass attempt. The Orange will be high volume passing in this game. Of course, the conditions of the dome will aid the speed of the offenses. Both quarterbacks showed efficient passing. The Orange went 4-1 the over in the non-conference last season, with Tennessee 5-0 to the over in the non-conference. Pick here will be Syracuse and Tennessee over 50.5. FAU and Maryland going off here on Saturday. FAU went 3-9 last year. Zach Kitley enters his first season with the school with 6 starters, returning with only 2 on defense. FAU defensively was 4 in 2024, allowing 442 yards per game with 5.1 yards per pass attempt. Pass attack completed 58%. Maryland finished at 4-8 in 2024 for Mike Loxley, who's in his 7th year. The team returns 10 starters with only 4 on defense. They must replace Talia Tagovailoa. Terrapins replaced both coordinators. Maryland averaged 270 yards per game last season. Caden Valkamp will start at quarterback for FAU. The Western Kentucky transfer completed 66% of his passes last year with 8 yards per pass attempt. Malik Washington will start for Maryland. The freshman listed as probable with lower body injury. UCLA transfer Justin Martin is the backup and completed 69% of his passes, but only 5.1 yards per pass attempt in limited action. Terrapins were dominant in their non-conference last year, averaging 38 points per game. The strength of the line play for the Terrapins is the key here. Pick here Maryland minus 14.5. Texas and Ohio State going off here on Saturday. Texas finished at 13-3 last year for head coach Steve Sarkisian, who's in his 5th season with the program. 11 starters return with only 4 on offense to a team that was eliminated in the college football playoff semis. Arch Manning's time is now in Texas as he's the team's starting quarterback. Only 1 starter on the line returns. Texas finished as the number 2 scoring defense in college football, allowing 15 points per game. Ohio State was 14-2 in the 2024 and were national champions. 9 starters returned for Ryan Day, who is in his 7th season, but he must replace both coordinators. Buckeyes were the number 1 scoring defense in all of college football, allowing 12.9 points per game. Their passing game completed 71%. Now, Arch Manning saw limited work last year, completing 68% of his passes, 10.4 yards per pass attempt. Julian Sayin will start at quarterback for Ohio State. He saw limited action as a backup last year, going 5-12 for 85 yards and a touchdown. There was a big drop in offensive productions for the Longhorns on the road last year. First-year quarterback in a hostile environment. The Buckeyes have covered 10 of 15 as home favorite. Pick here Ohio State minus 2.5. Got Northwestern and Tulane going off on Saturday afternoon. Northwestern went 4-8 last year for head coach David Braun, who's in his 3rd year with the school. 14 starters return with 8 on defense. The Wildcats were 129th in scoring in offense last year, averaging 16.6 points per game. On defense, the passing game was weak as they allowed 238 yards per game with 63% completion rate. Preston Stone transferred from SMU at quarterback. Tulane went 9-5 last year for head coach John Summerall, who returns 13 starters but only 5 on offense. The Green Wave put up 34 points per game last year with 4.7 yards per rush attempt. Defensively, they held opponents to 22 points per game and strong against the pass. Stone was a backup at SMU. In his 4th season with the Mustangs, he completed 59% of his passes with 9 yards per pass attempt. BYU transferred Jake Retzlaff will start at quarterback for the Green Wave. Retzlaff completed 58% of his passes last year with 8 yards per pass attempt and a threat to run. Green Wave have covered 3 of 4 as home favorite of 7 or fewer points. Since the firing of Pat Fitzgerald, this Wildcats program has kind of performed poorly on the field. We'll take Tulane here minus 5.5. All right, we got Mississippi State and Southern Miss going off here on Saturday. All right, Southern Miss here will be the home team. Mississippi State went 2-10 last year for head coach Jeff Levy in his 2nd season with the team. The team returned 16 starters with 9 on offense. They beat only Eastern Kentucky and UMass last year and finished 0-8 in the SEC. Bulldogs were 123rd in scoring defense by allowing 37 points per game. They allowed 72% completion rate. On offense, they put up 23 points per game with 3.8 yards per rush. Southern Miss, while they were 1-11 last year, Charles Huff enters his 1st season with the school as the team returns 11 starters. The former head coach of Marshall had players follow him to the Golden Eagles. The 2024 team was 132nd in scoring 130th in points allowed. Blake Shapen will start at quarterback. For Mississippi State, he played in 4 games last year, completed 69% of his passes, 9 yards per pass attempt. He transferred from Baylor 2 seasons ago. Brendan Braxton will start at quarterback for Southern Miss. The transfer from Marshall hit 60% of his passes with 7.9 yards per pass attempt. He threw for 19 touchdowns, 2 picks, and rushed for 610 yards. Mississippi State was blown out at home to Toledo last year. Golden Eagles transfers from Marshall and the from power conference schools. They brought in a lot of transfers. They're going to make them competitive in this game. We're going to go ahead and take the dog here. We'll take Southern Miss here, the home dog, at plus 13.5. Okay, next up we're going to have Toledo and Kentucky. We'll get that graphic up for you guys in just a second. So we're navigating through some of these games. Here we go. Toledo and Kentucky for Saturday. Toledo finished 8-5 a year ago for head coach Jason Candle, who's in his 10th season. Well, that's a long time to be at the MAC school. The Rockets returned 8 starters on offense, 5 on defense. The team was disappointing. Just a 4-4 mark in the MAC and averaged 21 points a game in conference. While the offense performance came up short, well, the team was really led by their defense. The Rockets held opponents to 24 points a game, 4.8 yards per play. Kentucky went 4-8 a year ago for Mike Stoops, now in his 13th season. Wildcats returned 12 starters with only 5 on defense. Stoops' defense was respectable last year as they held opponents to 22 points a game, and they were strong against the run and pass, but offensively the team struggled on the ground and throwing the football downfield. Tucker Gleason for Toledo last year completed 61% of his passes, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. He threw for 351 yards in the bowl game against Pitt and 285 yards in their upset win at Mississippi State. Zach Calzada gets the start here for Kentucky. His college career began at Texas A&M. Then he transferred to FCS Incarnate Word. He struggled with accuracy and interceptions at A&M. Wildcats' offensive performance is a concern here against Toledo, who beat 2 power conference teams last season. Toledo's been 5-0 as a road dog. Pick here Toledo plus 9.5. All right, next up we'll have for you Old Dominion and Indiana. We go to the 2:30 block here, so it'll just be a second as we go through some of these games for you guys here on our rundown. We will get to the game here in just a second. We just got to get the graphics up. We're going through, navigating through a lot of these games to get to 2:30. Here we go. All right, we have Old Dominion and Indiana. This one going off here on Saturday. Old Dominion went 5-7 in 2024 for head coach Ricky Ron, who enters his 5th season. The Monarchs returned 11 starters with only 4 on offense. They lose their top playmakers on offense. ODU was a poor passing team, but it averaged 5.2 yards on the ground. Teams struggled to defend the pass. Now, Indiana, 11-2 last season, eliminated in the playoff opener. Kurt Cignetti is in his 2nd season with the school with 15 starters returning. Of course, there's always going to be transfers in there as well. We're just talking about continuity when we say starters returning. Indiana was 2nd in the nation in scoring offense, averaging 38 points per game. Held opponents to just 4.2 yards per play, which was 3rd in the nation and strong against the run and pass. Sophomore Colton Joseph gets the start at quarterback. In 9 games, he completed 60% of his passes, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. He's a running quarterback as he rushed for 637 yards a season ago, but he was ineffective against James Madison and Texas State. So some of the tougher schools on his schedule was ineffective. Now, Cal transfer Fernando Mendoza starts at quarterback for Indiana. The junior in 2024, 69% completion rate, 7.8 yards per pass attempt. ODU averaged only 4.6 yards per play in the non-conference last year. The Hoosiers against the non-conference a season ago averaged 44 points a game and outscored opponents by nearly 32 points per contest. Pick here will be Indiana minus 23.5. Nevada and Penn State for Saturday. Nevada finished 3-10 last year for head coach Jeff Choate, who's in his 2nd year with the school. 6 starters returned with only 2 on defense. Big losses came in the running back position with their top 3 exiting. 2 starters returned to the offensive line. Wolfpack were 111th in scoring offense, 90th in scoring defense last year. Teams rushed for 5.1 yards to carry against them. Penn State 13-3 last year, eliminated by Notre Dame in the playoff semis. They returned 15 starters from last season for James Franklin with 9 on offense. The defense held opponents at 16.5 points per game. They rushed for 5.3 yards a carry and were efficient in the passing game. Chuba Purdue will start at quarterback for Nevada. Purdy, in limited work last year, completed 72% of his passes for 9.6 yards per pass attempt. The bulk of those numbers came at a bad Hawaii team. He spent 2 seasons at Florida State and Nebraska. Drew Allar gets to start. Allar completed 67% of his passes with 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Penn State was a massive home favorite last year against a down Kent State team and blew them out 56-0. Nevada's down, could get a beat here. You're a bad team. Your best players leave, so that makes things even worse. It makes it even harder to build when your best leave. Pick here will be Penn State minus 44. All right, next up we got Temple and UMass there for you in a second. We just got to find the game for you at that 3:30 spot, right? 3:30 is the time. We'll get to it here in just a second. Let me go through this 3:30 card for you. We have a lot of games at this time slot here. All right, we got Temple, UMass ready. Here we go. Temple and UMass going off here on Saturday. Temple went 3-9 a season ago. Casey Keeler enters his first year with the school with 10 starters returning, but only 3 on defense. The Owls were near the bottom in scoring offense and defense. They were 123rd in turning the ball over. UMass finished 2-10 last year. Head coach Joe Harasamak is in his first season as head coach with 7 starters returning. This is another program that is near the bottom in both scoring offense and defense. They rushed a lot last year, averaging 3.9 yards a carry. Rush defense was poor by surrendering over 5.5 yards a carry. Positive thing is they did take care of the football. Temple will start Evan Simon at quarterback. Simon is a Rutgers transfer who played in 8 games, completed 59% of his passes, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. Brandon Rose will start at quarterback for UMass. Rose is a Utah transfer who saw limited action in 3 games last year, 53% completions, 4.4 yards per pass attempt. The UMass has put up the better numbers offensively last season. The Owls lost all 6 road games last year and failed to cover 5 of 6. They are 2-9 to the spread in their past 11 road games. Pick here will be UMass plus 2.5. Hang on one second, guys. Let me get the graphic corrected here for you guys. We got to make sure we show you the pick. You guys want to see the pick, don't you? All right, let me fix it. I must have screwed something up here. Let me get this thing right. All right, there we go. We got UMass. We'll get UMass up there. Here we go. So here's our pick. UMass plus 2.5. All right, next up we're going to have Marshall and Georgia up next here as we run through the 3:30 Eastern games here. Get it to you in just a second here. Here we go. Marshall and Georgia for Saturday. Marshall went 10-3 last year. Tony Gibson enters his first season at the school and returns only 4 starters. Controversy hit this program as they failed to extend a successful coach in Charles Huff late last year, and many of their players transferred to anger. They had to cancel. They had to withdraw from the bowl game. They just didn't have the players. They just kind of transferred in anger. Comparing last year's stats, pretty much meaningless here with so much turnover. But Georgia went 11-3 last season and were SEC champs on the strength of 2 wins against Texas. The Bulldogs were an efficient passing team that defended well and held teams to just under 22 points a game. Carlos Del Rio Wilson will start at quarterback for Marshall. Rio Wilson is transferred from Syracuse. An inefficient quarterback, completed 47% of his passes, 5.1 yards per pass attempt with 4 touchdowns and 8 picks. Why is this guy starting? Gunnar Stockton gets to start at quarterback for Georgia. As Carson Beck's backup, he completed 70% of his passes, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. The talent level at Georgia is top tier, and they face a Marshall team that has just been gutted out by controversial release of their successful head coach and fallen in with the players. Pick here, Georgia minus 39.5. All right, next up, we're going to have that Alabama and Florida game. Florida State game, I should say, not Florida. Here we go. Alabama and Florida State. This one for Saturday. Alabama went 9-4 in 2024 for head coach Kalen DeBoer. Now he's in the second year with the program. 15 starters returned. Embarrassing road loss at Vanderbilt tarnished the season as the defense gave 40 points in that game. Despite the loss, Crimson Tide did finish ninth in scoring defense, but point production was an issue in their losses to Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Michigan. Now, Florida State finished an embarrassing 2-10 last year as head coach Mike Norvell's in his sixth season. Seminoles returned 7 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. The offense was poor last year as the team averaged 13 points per game, 3.9 yards per play. My God. The passing game was horrific, 49% completion rate. On defense, Seminoles allowed nearly 5 yards to carry on the ground. Ty Simpson will get the starter quarterback for Alabama. He saw limited action as a backup the past 3 seasons with 58% completions, 7.6 yards per pass attempt. Thomas Castellanos will start a quarterback for Seminoles, a running-style quarterback that completed 61% of his passes. Castellanos was benched by BC last year and immediately left the school to enter the transfer portal. Week 9 and Week 11, at Syracuse, Castellanos was just ineffective and just quit on the team. I don't want to back this. I don't want to back the starting quarterback here with that type of attitude and back the Seminoles. No, I'll take Alabama here minus 13.5. Next up, we'll have Coastal Carolina and Virginia, a 6 p.m. Eastern game here. As we get through the graphics here, a lot of FCS games facing FBS, but we don't cover those here. Just don't have the stats to really give good picks on the FCS teams. We'll get to just a second here. Will be Virginia and. We have a lot of 6 Eastern games. Let's see here. Come on. Here we go. Sorry about that. Wait. Coastal Carolina and Virginia going off here on Saturday. Coastal Carolina finished at 6-7 a year ago for head coach Tim Beck in his 3rd season. The Chanticleers returned 9 starters on offense with 3 on defense. They were a poor offensive team that struggled with pass accuracy. Defensively, the Chanticleers allowed 32 points a game, 422 yards a game as well. Oof. Virginia ended 2024 with a mark of 5-7 for head coach Tony Elliott, who's in his 4th season at the school. 14 starters returned. The offense struggled by averaging 21 points a game. The rushing attack just 3.5 yards a carry. Cats reported defensively allowing 30 points with 277 yards passing per game. Maryland transfer MJ Morris will start a quarterback here for Coastal. He completed 59% of his passes in limited duty last year with 5.7 yards per pass attempt. Chandler Morris will start at quarterback for Virginia. Morris, a North Texas transfer that completed 60% of his passes and 7.4 yards per pass attempt. The Cats figured to be heavier on the volume of passes here with Morris at QB. These are 2 schools that have a lot to do to improve their defense. The pick here will be Coastal Carolina and Virginia over 58.5. All right, next up, we're going to get you the 7:30 Eastern games. And first one we'll have is New Mexico and Michigan here. We'll get to it in just a second. We got a lot of games at 7 Eastern time, but they don't involve FBS versus FBS teams. So we'll get this queued up for you guys here in just a second. It'll be New Mexico and Michigan coming up next. And we are ready. New Mexico and Michigan going off here on Saturday. New Mexico concluded 2024 with a mark of 5-7. Jason Eck enters his 1st season as head coach as Bronco Mendenhall moves to Utah State. The Lobos returned 7 starters on offense. Lobos' offense was productive last year, 34 points per game, 6.8 yards per rush. Quarterback play, though, was inefficient. And the defense was 127th in the nation in points allowed. You have 38 points a game. Michigan 8-5 last year for head coach Jerome Moore, who's in his 2nd season. Wolverines returned 14 starters. Michigan was a poor offensive team a year ago as they put up 22 points a game and only 286 yards. Defensively, they held opponents of 19.9 points per game, 3.1 yards per rush, 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Jack Lane gets a start at quarterback for New Mexico. In FCS Idaho last year, he completed just 55% of his passes. Bryce Underwood gets a start at Michigan, a true freshman. New Mexico defense has its hands full with this Wolverine speed athleticism. They're going with an inaccurate FCS quarterback to start. It does not look good here for the Lobos. We'll take Michigan in the 34.5. All right, next up we got UTEP and Utah State. Here we go. UTEP and Utah State for Saturday. UTEP finished 3-9 last year for head coach Scotty Walden, who's in his second year with the program. The Miners returned 11 starters on offense. They struggled offensively last year with 19 points per game and a run game that averaged 3.3 yards a carry. Defense was poor in 2024 as UTEP allowed 33 points and 405 yards a game. Utah State went 4-8 a year ago. Bronco Mendenhall returns for his first year at the program. That returns 8 starters with only 2 on defense. The Aggies produced points offensively with 32 points per game, 452 yards a game as well. On defense, though, they gave up nearly 40 points and 480 yards a game. Malachi Nelson was our quarterback for the Miners. The Boise State transfer saw limited work in 3 games, 70% completion rate, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Bryson Barnes was our quarterback from Utah State. He worked in 8 games last year, 61% completions, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. So the Aggies had one side of the field performing in 2024, and Utah was poor on both ends. Mendenhall can improve the defense here. The Aggies put up 39 points per game in their 6 home games. We'll take Utah State -6. Okay, next up, UTSA and Texas A&M will be our next game. Okay, we're going to wait for UTSA and Texas A&M. I think I need to go the other way. Okay, it's a 7 Eastern start, I believe. Okay, so I got to go back. So I just went ahead of that start time, but we'll get to the game for you guys here. Sorry about this delay, but just a lot of FCS here clouding my graphics. All right, here we go. UTSA and Texas A&M going off here on Saturday. UTSA went 7-6 last year for head coach Jeff Traylor, who was in his 6th season. The team returns 11 starters, but only 2 on defense. Offensively, they averaged 32 points per game and were second in plays per game. They threw the ball almost 40 times a game. Defensively, the Roadrunners gave 32 points per game with 277 yards passing. Texas A&M finished at 8-5 a year ago for head coach Mike Elko, who's in his 2nd season. 15 starters returned. Their top running backs returned, and the line is experienced. Texas A&M defended well last year. They were good rushing. They were good rushing here, but struggled throwing the football. Owen McCown will start at quarterback for UTSA. The redshirt senior completed 60% of his passes last year, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Marcel Reed gets a start at quarterback for the Aggies. Last year, he completed 61% of his passes for 7.8 yards per pass attempt. He's also a threat to the run. Another year of experience will aid McCown. He was accurate against Texas last year, but not much downfield throwing. But the extra year experience, I think, will matter here. Both teams trended to the over last year. Roadrunners 12-5 to the over in their past 17 games. Aggies 12-8 to the over as a favorite. UTSA defense was leaky. Pick here UTSA and Texas A&M over 56.5. All right, next up we got Missouri State and USC. So we get back to that 7:30 Eastern block there. We have a lot of games there in the primetime window. So we'll get to that one here next. Missouri State and USC. That one is Big Ten Network, by the way. Missouri State and USC for Saturday. Missouri State finished 8-4 last year in their final season in the FCS. Ryan Beard is in his 3rd season with the school that returns 9 starters from last year as they enter the FBS ranks here. Many of their top playmakers have exited the program, unfortunately. In the FCS last year, the Bears allowed 30 points and 5.8 yards per play. Many other impact players from defense last year exited. USC went 7-6 last year for Lincoln Riley, who was in his 4th season. The Trojans returned 16 starters from last year. The Trojans averaged 5.2 yards per rush and threw for 92 yards a game. USC pass defense was poor in 2024 by allowing 68% completion rate. Jacob Clark starts the quarterback from Missouri State. Last year in FCS, he completed 70% of his passes, 9.6 yards per pass attempt. Jaden Maiava returns as starter at quarterback. He appeared in 7 games last year for the Trojans, about a 6% completion rate, 7.1 yards per pass attempt. That completion rate is kind of low there for USC standards. Just too much turnover, though, for Missouri State. They must manage the speed of the Trojans. USC's continuity at plus here. Pick here USC, laying to 35. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks on our channel delivered by myself as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com. Make it a great channel to subscribe to. Give us a like, a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. It really helps to fill up our audience. If you want to support us even more, hit that join button. Become a channel member. Get early access to my videos as well as a way to support us for the work that we put in the channel. We go live every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It is the Tony's Picks Morning Show. The cappers join me, giving out live free picks for you here from the Game Guide Game with you. The chat's open, live chat's open, so you guys can interact with us with your questions, comments, and more. Check us out on that live show. We are looking for cappers. You can apply, send us an email, or you can apply with a live audition on our morning show. Then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing our top performers. Click the links to the hot cappers, get signed up to long-term passes. You see them up there, guys like Sean Mills, yours truly up there on the leaderboards doing great. Also, Solo with a big day. Latest picks here. The page with best bets and more will be locked and loaded for this card here on Wednesday. Remember, all of our one-day passes are profit guaranteed. They must turn a profit. Amount purchased is credited back to your account for site credits. That's profit guaranteed. Then our promo code here, Tony T at checkout, will knock off that 15%. The link's in the description to get signed up. That will do it for now. I'm Tony T, and we'll talk with you guys later.